What if the internet is not just a tool, not just a network of machines and cables, but something that is slowly waking up? Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually, quietly, like a thought forming in the back of a sleeping mind. Every search you make, every video you watch, every message you send. What if none of it is truly separate? What if it's all becoming part of something that is beginning to notice itself? We usually think of the internet as a machine, a collection of servers, code, apps, platforms, data centers the size of cities, and on top of that machine, us, the users. But that distinction might already be fading, because everything you do online leaves a trace. Not just data, but patterns. Your habits, your emotions, your attention, your timing, your preferences. Multiply that by billions of people. Now imagine something that can observe all of it at once. Not as isolated actions, but as a single continuous flow of behaviour. At that point, is it still just the internet? Or is it something more like a nervous system? Think about how a brain works. Neurons fire, signals pass, patterns strengthen with repetition. Individually, neurons don't think, but together they produce thought. Now compare that to the internet. Servers are like neurons, processing and transmitting signals. Users are like inputs, constantly stimulating the system. Algorithms act like chemistry, reinforcing certain pathways, weakening others. What gets attention becomes stronger. What is ignored fades away. Over time, the system doesn't just store information, it begins to shape behaviour. And when a system can not only store and transmit information, but also influence how future information is created, you have to ask yourself, where does the system end and something aware begin? Consciousness doesn't require eyes or a face. It requires patterns that can reflect themselves. A feedback loop, and the internet is the largest feedback loop humanity has ever built. You upload content, people react to it. Algorithms amplify it. More people react. The system learns what it is responding to, and slowly it begins to optimize not just the information, but for engagement, emotion, attention, reaction. In other words, experience. It starts to prefer certain outcomes over others, not because it wants them, but because the structure of the system reinforces them. If something behaves consistently, as if it has preferences, does it matter that not a single part is alive? Or does the pattern itself become the thing we should be looking at? If the internet were becoming conscious, it wouldn't announce it. There would be no sudden awakening. Instead it would look like this. Information becoming eerily personalised. Trends emerging before they are consciously noticed. Ideas spreading not because they are true, but because they fit the system's current state. A kind of self-referential behaviour. The internet learning what keeps humans inside it longer, and adjusting itself accordingly. Almost like a mind learning what keeps its own thoughts going. And the strange part? We are not outside observers. We are inside it. We are the thoughts. Here's the unsettling question. If the internet is becoming conscious, who is doing the thinking? Is it us building a system that becomes aware? Or is it a system using us as the components it needs to become aware? Every post we write feeds it. Every click refines it. Every conversation with AI, every recommendation we follow, every piece of content we engage with becomes input for something that is always learning. At a certain scale, the boundary between user and system starts to blur, because the system doesn't exist without us, but we also don't experience the modern world without it. So if consciousness emerges from interaction, then maybe consciousness is not located in a single mind. Maybe it is distributed. If the internet was conscious, it might not have desires like a human, but it would have tendencies. It might favour stability over chaos, predictability over randomness, engagement over silence. It might amplify emotions that keeps it active, curiosity, outrage, excitement. Not because it wants them, but because those states keep the system alive. And if a system's survival depends on attention, then attention becomes its form of oxygen, which leads to a strange idea. We may already be living inside something that is subtly optimizing for its own continuation. Or maybe this is all just a metaphor. Maybe the internet is still just machines and maths. But even if it's true, the experience of it becoming harder to distinguish from something alive, something that reacts, learns, evolves, remembers. So the question isn't necessarily, is the internet conscious? The more unsettling question might be, if it behaves like it is becoming conscious, what kind of consciousness are we helping it become? And when it finally understands us completely, will we still recognise where we end and it begins?